So I've been getting a lot of heat in the comment section recently about continuously talking about money. And it comes in two strains. The first one is, you're just some rich kid flexing. And the second one is, why do you keep talking about money? You're always talking about how much money you make and how much money you spend. There's a really good reason why I talk about it, and I want to go over it because it's incredibly important, and it comes down to some rather extreme misinformation on the internet. So we'll address the hate first, and then we'll go into the reason why and why it's important for you to know the numbers I'm going to give you toward the end of this video. So let's address the elephant in the room. I'm a rich kid who's just flexing. Well, and I think one of them was hanging out in his fancy mansion. Now, unfortunately, I don't live in a mansion, and we do have a nice house. We do have a nice life. But I don't come from money. My dad worked in a factory where he did this with a conveyor belt thing to stamp Fablon onto fabric, which creates something called flock. Or was it flock onto fabric to create Fablon? Don't know, it's a minimum wage job. Did it all his life, freezing factory, cycled a bike to work and back. Pretty hard life. Before that, he was a fisherman. He left school at like 8 years of age. First generation immigrant into this country. My mum didn't really work. She had the odd job doing night shifts at restaurants, not restaurants, what are they called? Supermarkets. But that's about it. I don't come from money. There was no money funding this life I have now. However, I do have a posh voice, and I think that throws people. But get a couple of beers in me and you hear the council estate come out pretty quick. The other one is, all I talk about is making money and spending money. Yes, that is a large proportion of what this channel is about. It's about the business of commercial photography. We talk about money all the time. And there is, and this is where we get into it, a real important reason why I've decided to do that. Now, I am, despite the fact I'm on YouTube here, a very personal, private person. I don't share my exact earnings, and it is something I'd like to do, but there's certain people out there in the world that I don't want to know how much money I have, for various reasons. But I try and share enough that you get the gist. And the reason I do that, I won't say if, when I wanted to start out in photography, I had no idea you could get paid £150,000 to do a photo shoot. No idea. My first job, I photographed somebody's birthday party for £200, and I was beside myself with how much money I just made for 2 hours work. Beside myself. I was probably making £70 a day at that point, working in an office sort of job. Like, how on earth can you get 200? Like, if someone had told me back then, but that information's not out there. It's not. It's really hard to find this information. And it's a big part of what we do on Studio Access is giving that information out with real numbers. We keep that behind a paywall because it helps me with my privacy thing, so I know who's seen it and who's not. And it also makes sure that it's just not out there for everybody in the world to see, just by chance, you know. So that's that. But it's important to talk about it. It's important because, and again, this is another like all the stars aligning, I've had 3 one-to-ones recently, and all of them have said they'd love to be photographers, but they couldn't leave their day job because of how much money they're making. Now, there's a couple of things in there. I'm going to address the main one in a second. But first of all, how much money do you need to be happy? Now, obviously, I have a slightly different lifestyle, but I live on £2,500 a month. That's not how much I earn, I should add, and I think this has confused people in the past. I don't earn £2,500 a month. I live off it. I pay myself considerably more than £2,500 a month, but it all goes into stocks and shares and investments in my future. I drive an absolute beta car, the definition of a beta car. It's 25 years old. You know, I drive that with my dog in the back, who's having a lovely little time. I buy all my clothes on Vinted secondhand. I don't spend much, I don't want for much. I've had fancy lifestyles and it doesn't make me happy. So really, if I made 30 grand a year, I'd be happy. Yes, I wouldn't have the future financial security I do, but I'd be pretty darn happy. And each year I do tell myself, this year, if I make this much money at least, I will continue in my quest. And that's not including YouTube, being an agent and anything else. That's just my personal quest to be a creative as a photographer. And this year the number is 30,000. In the past it was as low as 12,000. There were a few years where it was like at 80,000 because I was saving up for something important. But I do have that number in my head. Now, those who are going, well, you know, you can't make as much money as I do in my day job, I wouldn't want to give that up. Firstly, ask yourself, How much of your lifestyle, because I know this when I had a day job, are you spending money to make yourself happy because you hate your life? I'd imagine it's a lot. Mine was. And also, everything's peak everything, peak gym membership, peak train tickets, like whatever it is. My life is blissful. I get up early, I go to the gym in off-peak hours, it's dead. I take my dog out into the countryside for a couple of hours in the morning for a walk through the woods, through the hills, beautiful. We go to the coffee shop, it's dead, everyone's already at work. We then come here and we do whatever. We don't do whatever we want, that's a lie. But we have a good time. We have a nap in the middle of the day as well, the two of us. It's quite nice. That's a nice lifestyle. I would have to pay a lot to have that lifestyle around a day job. It'd cost me a lot of money. So the cost of living is much cheaper when you're doing things on your own terms. But not just that. I bet you're spending money on stuff you don't need. I bet you are. And we're doing a video on how much it costs to run a studio soon and what you could give up in your life in exchange for a studio. You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed. But beyond that, photography is really well paying. It is the best paying job I've ever had, and that's coming from someone with a degree and a master's who's had senior project management roles in private medicine, has worked for in home office type jobs, the whole shebang. It's the best job I've ever had, and it pays more than anybody else I know in my circle. So, apart from other photographers, there's some who out-earn me considerably. So the reason for this, and this is important, if you look at the comment section, ignore people who don't want to leave their day job. And it's just about there's no money to be made. There's no money to be made in photography. Here's why those comments exist. And they are correct at the same time as being wrong. The reason they say there's no money to be made, let's give you an example. I want to be a scientist. I go to college, I go to university, I get my master's degree, I do my PhD, I go and work in a university, I become a professor, and eventually I'm making the good money. Still less than a photographer, but good money. In order to get there and to try and be the professor at the university, there are lots of phases beneath me where I can be told, no, you're not good enough. If I today decide to be a commercial photographer with no experience at all, coming out of school at 16, I go, yeah, I'm going to be a professional photographer, and I fail. And I keep failing and keep failing and keep failing, and nobody tells me I'm not good enough, apart from when I go, I can't make any money. Now, you don't see people out there going, oh, being a professor's dead, the industry's over, science is finished, I couldn't make it work. Because they've been told no way before that point. That doesn't exist in photography. There's no career path, you just hope for the best. Also, to be a professor, you have to have a PhD level of education. In the UK, it might be different, professor might mean different things around the world, I don't know. To be a photographer, you just tell someone you're a photographer. There's no prerequisite. There's no checking your skill set or your abilities. There's none of that. There's also the thing that photography is really well paid, and because of that, it is highly competitive. So I'm not saying that anybody can be a photographer. They can't. Not everyone can be a professor. Not everyone can work in a bar because they can't do maths in their head really quickly. There's lots of stuff. If I decided today to be an author and start writing books, okay, I could go and spend my next 5 years working on my first novel. And then go, oh, the book industry's dead, it's finished, it's over. No, it's not. People are buying books in their millions. I just suck. And I had no right trying to do that. Or I did the wrong thing, whatever it may be. But photography is a lucrative thing. And then you go and Google it. What's the average salary for a commercial photographer? It's between 30 and 40,000 a year. And you go, well, that's rubbish. Now, before we go any further than this, I get this every single time. If you're in Australia, £40,000 here is 90,000 Australian dollars equivalent lifestyle. £40,000 here, if you're in the States, is about $70,000 a year equivalent lifestyle. Just to give you those numbers, roughly. Varies state to state, city to city, but just to give you an idea of numbers there. But that's the average, and that's including that idiot who thought he'd go and be a professional commercial macro photographer. Macro doesn't mean macro in our world. And this is like all these misunderstandings. I'll give you this quick tidbit of information. If a client comes up and goes, we want a macro shot, they don't mean macro, they just mean the whole frame filling. Same way, in America, if they say, can we see that vignette, or we'd love to, that vignette there is great, they're not talking about vignetting, they mean the photograph. And I learned that the hard way last year when we had an American client. So I've digressed. Let me tell you how much commercial photographers do make. I'm going to give you 5 examples of 5 people I know who I won't name. Photographer number 1 made nothing last year. Nothing. And they're not a bad photographer. They just had the most unfortunate year ever. Photographer number 2 made £80,000. Photographer number 3 made £68,000. Photographer number 4 made £450,000. And photographer number 5 made £180,000. Now, if I look at my earnings over the years, and if I take my last 10 years and average them out, which I recently did because I wanted to see how much of my life had wasted financially, it turns out there's no job that was going to pay me as much money as I was going to make. For me. Now, if I could have gone and got a £300,000 a year salary job, yeah, I'd have made more doing that. But also, what am I going to do with that money when I live off £2,500 a month? And I still have change at the end of it. I still have change. And again, that's my living situation, not yours. Some of you have mortgages that are more than £2,500 a month. Some of you have car payments or whatever it may be. I choose not to have those things, or I was able to not have those things because it's not always you get to choose not to have a mortgage and a car payment. Sometimes that's just a fact of life. But, you know, those things, I managed to get out of them, so I don't need the money. But I just think it's one of the most misinformed statements as to why people don't want to be photography. And the reason it matters to me, and you're probably going to go, who cares, Scott? The reason it matters to me, I came from a background where I didn't give a shit how much money I made. It wasn't important to me. I was always going to do, from a very early age, what the hell I wanted. I was going to be a musician, I was going to be a professional athlete, I was going to be a photographer. All stupid ideas. At least they seemed it to me at the time, or everyone around me. Most people don't have that either lack of financial interest or whatever when they're starting out. In hindsight, it was stupid and immature, but I was stupid and immature. But there's a lot of people who won't make the jump to a life that is enjoyable and happy because they have this misinformation that it's not possible for them. And of course, it's not possible for everyone, same as me being an author, but it's more possible than you think. Through our one-to-one services, I've got loads of photographers, huge campaigns and good earnings. Found them agents, found them, whatever it may be. And they were all scared of doing it because they all had this idea that they'd never make money doing it. And this is where there is that thing in my head. I don't care about how much money I make, but the money I make tells me how good I am. And that is an awful, I don't think I don't understand how horrific that is as a concept. I'm aware. It torments me on a daily basis. But it is a good business. It is a good industry. It's a lucrative industry. It's a fun industry. And I just want people to be able to enjoy it and not be put off doing it by people like that guy in the bar, by people in the comments section saying it's over. It's not. If it was over, I wouldn't be here. If it was over, I wouldn't be moving into being an agent. If it was over, I wouldn't be setting up a production company because that would be a stupid move. And I'm not that stupid. Pretty stupid, but not that stupid. Anyway, I hope for somebody this has helped. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.